The stars above Earth began to dim one by one. Captain Sarah Martinez watched from the command deck of Luna Station as dark shapes moved across the void, blocking out the light of distant suns. The alien fleet stretched beyond what human eyes could see, their massive ships casting shadows across entire continents below. "How many?" she whispered to Lieutenant Torres, who was hunched over his scanner display. "We stopped counting at 5,000, Nam. The computers can't process them all." Torres's voice shook as he spoke. "Some of their ships are bigger than our cities." Sarah had served in the Terran Defense Force for 20 years. She had seen asteroid strikes and solar flares. She had watched brave soldiers die in the vacuum of space. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. The alien fleet was so vast that their ships formed a metal wall between Earth and the cosmos dot down on Earth's surface. People stopped their daily lives to stare at the sky. In New York, traffic came to a halt as drivers abandoned their cars to look up. In Tokyo, millions gathered in the streets. In London, Big Ben's chimes seemed hollow against the silence that had fallen over the world. The first message came at exactly noon. Greenwich Mean Time. Every screen on Earth flickered and went dark. Every radio fell silent. Then a voice spoke in perfect English, though it carried sounds that no human throat could make. "People of the third planet, you will know us as the hegemony. We have come to your small world as we have come to 647 worlds before you." The voice paused, and in that silence, Sarah could hear her own heartbeat. "We do not come as friends. We do not come as traitors. We come as your new masters. You have 72 hours to surrender your world completely. You will disarm all weapons. You will submit all leaders for processing. You will prepare your population for integration into the hegemony." President Martinez sat in the White House bunker, surrounded by generals and advisors. The same message was playing on screens around the world in every language humans had ever spoken. The aliens had done their homework. "If you refuse," the voice continued, "your world will be burned clean. Your cities will become ash. Your people will become memory. We have done this before. We will do it again if needed." General Harrison, head of Earth's combined military forces, looked at the president with tired eyes. "Sir, our best weapons can't even scratch their smallest ships. Our nuclear arsenal might take out 1 or 2 vessels, but they have thousands." The president nodded slowly. "How long would we last in a fight?" "Hours, maybe less." Harrison's words fell like stones in the silent room. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, maybe thousands of years." On the screens, the alien message continued. They showed images of other worlds they had conquered. Beautiful planets with crystal cities now stood empty and silent. Green worlds covered in forests were now barren rock. The message was clear. Resistance meant death. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's top scientist, studied the data streaming from their sensors. "Their energy signatures are incredible," she told her team at the Global Defense Laboratory. "One of their smaller ships puts out more power than our entire electrical grid." Her assistant, Dr. Kim, looked pale as he read the numbers. "Doctor, according to these readings, they could crack our planet like an egg." Elena nodded grimly. "And they've probably done it before." Across Earth, families huddled together in their homes. Parents held their children close, not knowing what to tell them. Teachers tried to calm their students. Priests and ministers and holy men of every faith struggled to find words of comfort. In the Australian outback, an old Aboriginal elder named Jack looked up at the dark ships and shook his head. "Grandmother always said the stars would bring trouble someday," he told his grandson. But even she didn't see this coming. The message played again every hour. Each time, it counted down. The remaining time, 71 hours. 70 hours. 69 hours. World leaders held emergency meetings that seemed pointless. What could Earth's divided nations do against such overwhelming force? The United Nations building in New York became a gathering place for desperate discussions. We could try to negotiate, suggested the French ambassador. With what? Replied the Russian representative. They're not asking for resources or territory. They want complete surrender. The Chinese delegate spoke quietly. My government's position is clear. We will not kneel to alien invaders. And we all die, said the British ambassador. Admiral Chen Wei sat in her office beneath the Pacific Ocean, 3 miles down in humanity's most secret military base. She had spent 30 years preparing for threats that might come from space. But even her worst nightmares had not imagined this. Her aide, Commander Jackson, brought her the latest reports. Admiral, every government is asking the same question. Fight or surrender? Chun looked at the tactical displays showing the alien fleet. Their ships moved in perfect formation, like a well-trained dance. Have we learned anything about their technology? Some. Their ships use energy shields that can deflect our strongest weapons. Their hulls are made from materials we don't recognize, and their power source. Jackson paused. We think they're using controlled black holes for energy. Chun nodded slowly. Such technology was beyond Earth's wildest dreams. Meanwhile, in deep space, the Hegemony Fleet commander studied reports about the small blue world below. The humans seemed typical of most species they encountered. Divided, frightened, and completely outmatched. Another easy conquest, he told his second-in-command. Their technology is primitive. Their weapons are laughable. They will surrender within the time limit. And if they don't? Asked the second. The commander's alien features showed something like amusement. Then we add another dead world to our collection. As the countdown continued, something strange began happening on Earth. Instead of panic, a quiet determination started to grow. In small towns and big cities, people began to gather, not to pray or protest, but to prepare. Sarah Martinez received a coded message from Admiral Chun Wei. It was short and simple. Operation Lazarus is active. Report to designated stations. Operation Lazarus. Sarah had heard whispers about it, but never believed it was real. A plan so secret that only a few dozen people in the world knew about it. A plan that seemed impossible. But as she read the message again, Sarah realized that humanity might have one last card to play. The alien countdown continued. 66 hours, 65 hours, 64 hours. Earth's leaders continued to debate. Fight or surrender? Die quickly or live as slaves? But in the deepest military bunkers, in hidden laboratories, and in places that didn't appear on any map, other preparations were beginning. Preparations that had started not 72 hours ago, but decades earlier. The aliens had made one mistake. They assumed that humanity was like every other species they had conquered. Weak, divided, afraid. They were about to learn that humans were something else entirely. Something that would rather burn the galaxy than kneel. The countdown reached 60 hours, and Earth's real answer began to take shape. 24 hours remained on the alien countdown when President Martinez walked slowly to the podium in the White House press room. The world watched as he adjusted his tie and looked directly into the cameras. His face showed the weight of humanity's darkest hour. My fellow humans, he began, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. After careful consideration with world leaders, military commanders, and scientific advisors, we have reached a decision regarding the hegemony's ultimatum. Sarah Martinez watched from Luna Station as her father prepared to deliver the words. That would seal humanity's fate. She had not spoken to him since the crisis began. Military protocol demanded silence. But she knew this moment was tearing him apart. We cannot win a war against the hegemony fleet, President Martinez continued. Their technology is far beyond ours. Their numbers are overwhelming. To fight would mean the certain death of every man, woman, and child on Earth. In the alien command ship high above Earth, the hegemony fleet commander listened to the transmission with satisfaction. Another species had seen reason. Another world would join their empire without the mess of bombardment and cleanup. Therefore, the president said, taking a deep breath, Earth formally surrenders to the hegemony. We will comply with all demands for disarmament and integration. We ask only that our people be treated with mercy. Across the globe, humans watched in stunned silence. Some wept. Others felt relief that the nightmare was ending. Most simply stared at their screens, trying to process that their world now belonged to aliens. But in a bunker 3 miles beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Chun Wei smiled coldly as she turned off the television broadcast. Excellent performance, she said to her communications officer. The president deserves an award for that acting. Commander Jackson looked confused. Admiral, I don't understand. Are we surrendering or not? Chun Wei turned to face the dozen officers gathered in the sea. Command Center. These were the most trusted people in Earth's military. Each had been selected years ago for their absolute loyalty and their ability to keep secrets. Gentlemen and ladies, Chun Wei said, what you just witnessed was the opening move in humanity's real war plan. Earth is not surrendering. We are laying a trap. She pressed a button, and the room's main screen came alive with a map of the solar system. Red dots showed the positions of alien ships. Blue dots showed something else entirely. For the past 40 years, since we first detected signs of alien civilization, a small group of scientists and military planners have been preparing for this day. We called it Project Lazarus because we knew humanity might have to die and be reborn to survive. Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared on the screen via secure transmission from her hidden laboratory. Admiral, Phase 1 is complete. All systems are online and ready. Chun Wei nodded. Dr. Vasquez, please explain to our officers what humanity has really been doing all these years. Elena's image flickered as quantum encryption protected their communication. While the world focused on climate change and politics, we focused on survival. We identified 3 possibilities for alien contact. Friendly visitors, which seemed unlikely. Traitors, which was possible. Or conquerors, which history suggested was most probable. She paused as new data scrolled across her screens. We prepared for the worst case. Every space mission for the past 30 years had a secret purpose. Every asteroid mining operation, every deep space probe, every seemingly peaceful scientific project. Commander Jackson leaned forward. What kind of preparations? We weaponized the solar system, Elena said simply, starting with the asteroid belt. The main display zoomed in to show the space between Mars and Jupiter. What looked like natural asteroids were highlighted in blue. 40,000 asteroids now contain ion drives and guidance systems, Elena continued. Each one can be accelerated to significant fractions of light speed. At those velocities, even small rocks become planet killers. Officer Williams, the youngest person in the room, raised her hand. But won't the aliens detect the drives when we activate them? Chun Wei answered this one. They would if we were using conventional technology, but we're not. Dr. Vasquez, tell them about the breakthrough. Elena smiled for the first time since the crisis began. Quantum entanglement drives. No energy signature, no heat, no electromagnetic emissions. The alien sensors can't detect what isn't there in normal space. The display showed more blue dots throughout the solar system, around Earth's moon, in the outer planet's asteroid belts, even in the comet cloud at the edge of the solar system. The asteroids are just the beginning, Elena said. We've built weapons platforms disguised as space junk in Earth's orbit. We've hidden fusion mines in the lunar surface. We've turned 3 moons of Jupiter into massive railguns. Jackson shook his head in amazement. How did you keep this secret? Something this big should have been impossible to hide. Compartmentalization, Chen Wei replied. Most of the workers thought they were building mining equipment or research stations. Only a few dozen people knew the real purpose. And we had help from an unexpected source. She pressed another button, and a new face appeared on screen. Dr. Sarah Kim, from the Global AI Research Center. We created an artificial intelligence specifically to help coordinate the project, Dr. Kim explained. Atlas has been planning and building for 25 years. It calculated probable alien attack patterns, optimal weapon placements, and thousands of other variables. Atlas also helped us identify people who could be trusted with the secret, Chen Wei added. People like everyone in this room. The display zoomed out to show the entire solar system. Blue dots were everywhere now. Thousands of them. The aliens think they're dealing with a primitive species that just learned to leave their home planet. Elena said, they have no idea that we've been preparing their graveyard for decades. Officer Martinez, Sarah's cousin, spoke up. Admiral, this is incredible, but they still have thousands of ships with technology we don't understand. How can we be sure this will work? Chun Wei's expression grew serious. We can't be sure. But we learned something important from studying their broadcasts. The hegemony has never faced real resistance. Every species either surrendered immediately or died quickly. They've grown overconfident. Overconfidence is a weakness we can exploit, Elena added. Atlas has analyzed their fleet movements. They're not taking proper defensive positions. They're treating this like a peaceful occupation. Dr. Kim's image leaned forward. There's something else. ATLAS intercepted and decoded some of their internal communications. The hegemony isn't just conquering worlds for resources. They're collecting species for genetic experimentation. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. They've done this to over 600 worlds, Xin Wei said quietly. Billions of sentient beings enslaved or killed for their twisted research. Earth was never going to be spared, no matter what we offered them. She stood and walked to a red button protected by a clear cover. Which brings us to Phase 2. The aliens expect us to begin disarmament within 12 hours. Instead, we're going to give them something else entirely. What if they detect our weapons when we activate them? Williams asked. Chun Wei smiled coldly. They won't have time. Atlas calculated that we have approximately 17 minutes from activation to impact. The aliens' reaction time, based on their observed behaviors, is much slower. And if we're wrong, Jackson asked. Then humanity dies fighting instead of kneeling, Chun Wei replied, which is better than the alternative they had planned for us. Elena's voice came through the speakers again. Admiral, the hegemony fleet is moving into final occupation positions. They're spreading out across Earth's orbital space exactly as Atlas predicted. Chun Wei looked around the room at her officers. These were the people who would help humanity roll the dice one last time. Ladies and gentlemen, in 6 hours, when the aliens expect our first disarmament broadcast, we're going to send them a different kind of message instead. She lifted the cover from the red button. We're going to show them that humans don't surrender. We dig traps. Above them, 3 miles of ocean and rock, the alien fleet settled into Earth's orbit like predators, claiming their territory. They had no idea that they were actually positioning themselves exactly where humanity wanted them. The countdown continued, but now it meant something different. Not the time until Earth's surrender, but the time until humanity's trap was sprung. Shun. Wei's finger hovered over the button that would begin the most desperate gamble in human history. Admiral Chun Wei's finger pressed the red button at exactly 0600 hours. Greenwich Mean Time. 3 miles above her head, the Pacific Ocean sparkled in the morning sun. 300 miles above that, the alien fleet waited in perfect formation for Earth's first disarmament broadcast. They would get a broadcast, but not the one they expected. Atlas Online came the artificial intelligence's calm voice through the bunker's speakers. All systems activated. Quantum drives responding across. All platforms. Time to first impact. 16 minutes, 43 seconds. Across the solar system, 40,000 asteroids that had drifted silently for decades suddenly came alive. Their quantum drives engaged without a whisper of energy that alien sensors could detect. Ancient rocks that had tumbled through space. Since the birth of the solar system began to accelerate toward Earth's orbit. Captain Sarah Martinez felt Luna Station shudder beneath her feet, though she didn't know why. In the asteroid belt, Mining Station Series 7 had just revealed its true nature. The entire installation split open like a flower, exposing a massive railgun that began charging with the power of a small star. "Sarah," Lieutenant Torres called. Out, his voice tight with excitement and fear. "I'm getting some kind of energy readings from the asteroid belt, but they don't match anything in our databases." Sarah wanted to tell him the truth, but her orders were clear. Even now, only a few hundred people on Earth knew what was really happening. "Keep monitoring," she said instead, "and prepare for emergency acceleration." In the Hegemony command ship, Fleet Commander Zirith studied the displays with growing satisfaction. The human fleet was pathetically small. A few hundred ships, most of them designed for cargo transport rather than war. Their largest vessel was smaller than his smallest escort. "Commander," his sensor operator reported, "the humans are broadcasting again." "Put it on main display," Zirith ordered. He expected to see human leaders announcing the locations of their weapons, stockpiles, or perhaps pleading for mercy. Instead, President Martinez appeared on screen, but his expression had changed completely. Gone was the defeated, broken man from yesterday's surrender. In his place stood someone who looked almost cheerful. "Greetings, Hegemony Fleet," the president said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We have received your demands for disarmament. We would like to comply, but we have encountered a small problem." Zirith leaned forward in his command chair. Something in the human's tone made his scales prickle with unease. "You see," President Martinez continued, "we seem to have forgotten where we put some of our weapons. In fact, we've been placing them around the solar system for the past 40 years, and we've lost track of quite a few." The president's smile grew wider. "But don't worry. We're about to help you find them." In the Pacific bunker, Chun Wei watched the tactical display as thousands of blue dots began moving toward the red concentration of alien ships. "Atlas, status report. First wave impact in 12 minutes, 18 seconds, the AI responded. "Hegemony Fleet maintaining formation." They appear to be confused by the president's broadcast. Dr. Elena Vasquez's voice came through the CUM system from her hidden laboratory. "Admiral, the quantum mines around the moon are armed and ready. The Jupiter railguns are charged to full power. And the solar collectors ... double quotes. Are those online?" Chun Wei interrupted. "Yes, ma'am. All 7 solar collection arrays are focused and ready to fire." Chun Wei nodded grimly. The solar collectors were humanity's most ambitious weapon. Massive mirror arrays hidden in the asteroid belt that could focus the sun's energy into planet killing. Laser beams. They had cost more than Earth's entire space program, but today would prove if they were worth it. Back on the alien command ship, Zirith's sensor operator was beginning to sound worried. "Commander, I'm detecting some unusual movement. In the asteroid belt, multiple objects are accelerating toward our position." How many objects? Zirith demanded. I can't get an accurate count, sir. The sensors show thousands of contacts, but they're not registering any propulsion signatures. Zirith's second-in-command, Sub-Commander Thrak, studied his own displays. Sir, the objects appear to be natural asteroids. But asteroids don't change course without external force. Could the humans have hidden engines on them? Zirith asked. Impossible, Thrak replied confidently. We've been monitoring this system for days. Our sensors would have detected any technology that primitive. That was their first mistake. Hegemony technology was designed to detect conventional engines, conventional weapons, conventional threats. They had never encountered quantum drives that operated outside normal space dash, time dot in Earth's orbital space. The first sign of humanity's trap became visible to the naked eye. A small asteroid, no bigger than a city block, streaked past the outer edge of the alien formation. It was moving at 12% of light speed. The asteroid missed every alien ship, but its purpose wasn't to hit anything. It was a message. Commander, the sensor operator shouted. That object was traveling at relativistic speeds. How did the humans accelerate a mass that large to such velocity? Before Zirith could answer, his communications officer interrupted. Sir, we're receiving another broadcast from the planet's surface. This time, Admiral Chun Wei appeared on screen. She was sitting in what looked like a military command center, surrounded by tactical displays and officers. Hegemony Fleet, she said calmly. I am Admiral Chun Wei, commander of Earth's real defense forces. What you just witnessed was a demonstration. One asteroid moving at 0.12 light speed. We have 39,999 more just like it, all targeted at your ships. Zirith felt something he hadn't experienced. In centuries of conquest, uncertainty. You assumed we were primitive, Chun Wei continued. You assumed we were helpless. You assumed we would surrender like every other species you've encountered. You were wrong on all counts. The tactical display in Zirith's command ship suddenly lit up with thousands of new contacts. Asteroids were streaming toward them from every direction. The objects showed no energy signatures, no heat, nothing their sensors should be able to track. Yet there they were, moving with impossible precision and speed. Sub-Commander, Zirith barked, activate defensive systems. Destroy those asteroids before they reach us. Sir, our weapons can't target them effectively. They're too small and moving too fast. And there are too many of them. On Earth's surface, in cities around the world, people gathered in the streets to watch the sky. They had been told to expect a show, but most didn't understand what they were seeing. Tiny points of light streaked overhead like a meteor shower, but these meteors were heading away from Earth, not toward its dot in the Pacific bunker. Atlas began its countdown. First wave impact in 30 seconds. Hegemony vessels are attempting evasive maneuvers. Success probability for evasion, 0.03%. Chun Wei watched the display as red dots representing alien ships tried desperately to move out of the way of blue dots representing human asteroids. The aliens were fast, but physics was faster. 20 seconds to impact, Atlas announced. Hegemony Fleet is firing on incoming asteroids. 17% of projectiles destroyed. Remaining projectiles will reach targets. The first asteroid struck a Hegemony destroyer at 0.12 times the speed of light. The alien ship, massive as a mountain and armored with hull materials that could withstand nuclear weapons, simply ceased to exist. The kinetic energy release lit up space like a small sun dot. Then the second asteroid hit, and the third, and the fourth dot in the space of 90 seconds. 2,000 Hegemony vessels were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated plasma. The remaining ships in the fleet scattered in panic. abandoning their perfect formation for the first time in their military history. Atlas, Chun Wei called out. Activate Phase 2. Phase 2 initiated, the AI responded. Solar collectors. Focusing. Jupiter railguns firing. Lunar quantum mines deploying. Across the solar system, humanity's hidden weapons revealed themselves in full. 7 massive laser beams, each powered by focused solar energy, lanced out from the asteroid belt to spear fleeing alien ships. The railguns on Jupiter's moons fired projectiles the size of skyscrapers at significant fractions of light speed. Around Earth's moon, quantum mines that had been disguised as space debris for decades suddenly activated, creating spatial distortions that tore apart any ship unlucky enough to be nearby. Commander Zirith, his flagship damaged but still functional, stared at his tactical display in disbelief. In less than 10 minutes, the most powerful fleet in hegemony history had been reduced to scattered, burning wreckage. Impossible, he whispered. How could a primitive species develop such weapons? His communications officer, leading from a chi head wound, managed to speak. Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the planet. President Martinez appeared on screen again, but now he was standing in what was clearly a war room. Behind him, displays showed the destruction of the hegemony fleet in real time. Commander Zirith, the president said, somehow knowing the alien's name. We've been listening to your communications for quite some time. We know who you are. We know where you come from. And we know what you've done to 647 other worlds. The surviving ships of the hegemony fleet limped through space, their perfect formations shattered, their confidence destroyed. Commander Zirith sat in his damaged command chair, watching repair teams try to fix systems that human weapons had torn apart in ways his engineers didn't understand. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving priority transmissions from 17 different hegemony worlds. They're all asking the same question. Which is? Zirith asked, though he already knew. How did a primitive species destroy our fleet? Zirith didn't answer. He was too busy studying the intercepted human communications that his intelligence team had finally managed to decode. What he read made his blood run cold. The transmissions weren't between military units or government officials. They were between ordinary human families, parents talking to children, teachers messaging their students, workers coordinating with their supervisors. Sir, his intelligence officer said quietly, you need to see this. We've been monitoring civilian communications from the planet's surface. The main screen filled with hundreds of human conversations. Zirith read them with growing horror. From New York. Sarah, take Tommy and get to the shelter. Don't worry about us. We volunteered for this. From Tokyo. The evacuation ships leave in 6 hours. Remember, only the children. Everyone over 18 stays. From London. Tell the kids we love them. If this doesn't work, at least they'll be safe in the colonies. What are they talking about? Zirith demanded. What evacuation ships? What? Colonies? His intelligence officer's voice shook as he answered. Sir, it appears the humans have been secretly evacuating their children to hidden locations. Not just recently, for years. Maybe decades? Zirith stared at the data. That's impossible. Our surveys showed no off-world colonies. That's what we thought too. But look at this. The screen showed new intelligence data. Human ships had been making regular trips to star systems that hegemony surveys had marked as empty. Not cargo ships or military vessels, but passenger transports designed to carry thousands of people in suspended animation. They've been hiding their children, the intelligence officer continued, spreading them across dozens of star systems we've never visited. Systems so far from here that even if we destroyed Earth, the human species would survive. Zirith felt something that the hegemony had trained out of him long ago. fear. But that's not the worst part, his officer added. Keep reading the transmissions. Zirith scrolled through more messages between humans. His alien features twisted. With each one he read dot from Sydney. The final protocol is active. Everyone knows what that means. From Moscow, we've run the calculations. If we fail, the backup plan ensures mutual destruction. From Brazil, remember, it's not just about Earth anymore. It's about making sure they can never do this to anyone else. Final protocol? Zirith asked. Backup plan? What are they talking about? Before his officer could answer, a new transmission came from Earth. This time, it wasn't President Martinez or Admiral Chun-Wei. It was a woman Zirith didn't recognize, speaking from what looked like a scientific facility. Hegemony survivors, Dr. Elena Vasquez said, looking directly into the camera. I am Dr. Elena Vasquez, Chief Scientist of Project Lazarus. I believe your intelligence teams have been trying to understand our communications. Allow me to clarify. She gestured to a display behind her showing star charts of hegemony space. For 40 years, we have been preparing not just to defend Earth, but to ensure that species like yours can never again threaten innocent worlds. You see, we've been studying you much longer than you've been studying us. The display changed to show hegemony fleet movements going back decades. We know about the 647 worlds you've conquered. We know about your genetic experiments on captured populations. We know about your breeding programs and your slave labor camps. Most importantly, we know the locations of your home worlds. Zirith's command staff exchanged worried glances. How could a primitive species have gathered such detailed intelligence? We also know, Dr. Vasquez continued, that your entire civilization depends on a network of FTL communication relays and supply lines that connect your empire. Destroy enough key nodes, and your empire collapses into isolated systems that can't support themselves. The display zoomed in on specific star systems, highlighting strategic points in hegemony space. Every adult human on Earth has volunteered for what we call the final protocol. If our defense of Earth fails, or if you attempt to retreat and return with a larger fleet, we will implement total war. Dr. Vasquez's expression grew cold. Let me explain what total war means to humans. In his damaged ship, Zirith watched with growing dread as the human scientist outlined humanity's true nature. Humans are not like the other species you've conquered, she said. We don't surrender when facing extinction. We don't negotiate when our children are threatened. Instead, we do something that apparently no other species in the galaxy has done. She paused, letting her words sink in. We prepare to take our enemies with us. The display behind her changed again, showing technical schematics that made Zirith's engineers gasp in shock. Over the past 4 decades, human deep space probes have visited every major hegemony world, not to explore or map, but to plant quantum devices that can trigger stellar collapse. We have turned your own stars into weapons pointed at your planets. Zirith's tactical officer spoke in a strangled voice. Sir, if they're telling the truth, they could destroy our entire civilization. They are telling the truth, his intelligence. Officer confirmed, reading new data. Our archives show unidentified contacts in 17 of our most important systems over the past 30 years. Contacts that disappeared before our patrols could investigate. Dr. Vasquez smiled grimly on. The screen. You're wondering if we're bluffing. Let me demonstrate. The display showed a star system at the edge of hegemony space, a minor world with only a few million inhabitants. The Kepler 442 system, one of your newer conquests. The native population was enslaved 6 years ago. Zirith knew the system. It was a small industrial world, not particularly important strategically. We're going to free them now, Dr. Vasquez said simply. On the display, The star at the center of the Kepler 442 system began to fluctuate. Energy readings spiked beyond what should be possible. Then, in a flash of light that briefly outshone an entire galaxy, the star collapsed into a black hole. The hegemony facilities, the slave camps, the entire planet vanished in seconds. But so did the star system itself. "One down," Dr. Vasquez said calmly. 76 more hegemony worlds to go if you make the wrong choice. Zirith stared at the display in absolute terror. An entire star system had just been destroyed with a precision that defied everything he knew about physics. "How?" he whispered. His chief scientist, who had been analyzing the data, looked up with shaking hands. "Commander, they've somehow learned to manipulate stellar collapse using quantum mechanics. The technology required is beyond anything in our archives." Dr. Vasquez continued her broadcast. "You assumed we were primitive because our ships were slow and our weapons were simple. But you never considered that we might be hiding our true capabilities. You never imagined that a species would spend 40 years preparing for a war they hoped would never come." The display showed more star charts, with dozens of hegemony systems highlighted in red. "Every world you've conquered has quantum devices waiting in their stars. Every supply depot, every military base, every breeding facility where you conduct your experiments. We can destroy them all with a single command." She leaned forward, her eyes boring into the camera. "But that's not what makes humans truly dangerous. What makes us dangerous is what we're willing to sacrifice." The screen split to show scenes from across Earth, empty schools where children once played, abandoned homes where families once lived, cities full of people who had sent their children away and stayed behind to fight. "Every human adult on this planet has said goodbye to their children forever," Dr. Vasquez explained. "We've evacuated the next generation to places you'll never find them. The humans you see here today? We're all volunteers for a one-way mission." Zirith began to understand the true horror of what humanity represented. "If you kill us, our children will remember. If you retreat and come back, we'll trigger stellar collapse across your entire empire. If you try to negotiate, we'll demand the freedom of every enslaved world in your territory." Dr. Vasquez stood up, her expression absolutely resolute. "You wanted to add Earth to your collection of conquered worlds. Instead, you've awakened a species that sees your entire empire as a threat to be eliminated. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to make sure that species like yours can never again enslave innocent civilizations." The transmission paused as another message came in. This one was from Admiral Chun Wei. "Commander Zirith," the Admiral said, somehow knowing he was listening, "you have 1 hour to make a decision. Retreat from our space and never return, or discover what happens when an entire species chooses mutual destruction over surrender." The transmission ended, leaving Zirith alone with his thoughts and his terror dot around him. His officers waited for orders. But for the first time in his long military career, Zirith had no idea what to do. His empire had conquered. Commander Zirith stood alone in his command center, watching the countdown timer that Admiral Chen Wei had sent to his ship. 57 minutes until humanity's deadline. 57 minutes to make a decision that would determine the fate of the hegemony empire. His communications officer approached carefully. "Sir, we're receiving urgent transmissions from the High Council on Hegemony Prime. They want to know our status." Zirith looked at the young officer, barely old enough to remember the early days of the Empire's expansion. "Tell them," he said slowly, "that we have encountered something that changes everything." "Sir?" "Tell them that we found a species that would rather destroy the galaxy than surrender." The officer's scales turned pale. "Should I request reinforcements?" Zirith almost laughed, but the sound died in his throat. "Reinforcements? Did you not see what happened to our fleet? Did you not hear what the humans said about our homeworlds? He turned to study the tactical display one more time. The wreckage of 3,000 ships floated in Earth's orbital space. Ships that had conquered hundreds of worlds reduced to scrap metal by creatures the hegemony had dismissed as primitive. "Sir," his science officer interrupted, "we've been analyzing the human weapon systems. The technology they demonstrated is impossible according to our understanding of physics." "Explain." "The stellar collapse they triggered at Kepler 442. Our best calculations show it would require energy equal to the output of 1,000 stars, precisely focused at the quantum level. No known civilization has ever achieved such mastery over fundamental forces." Zirith nodded grimly. "What else?" "The quantum drives on their asteroids operate outside normal spacetime. We still can't detect them even when we know they're there. And the precision of their attack. Every weapon hit exactly where it was intended, despite moving at relativistic speeds." The science officer paused, then continued with obvious reluctance. "Sir, I don't think the humans are primitive at all. I think they've been hiding there. True technological level for decades, maybe centuries." Before Zirith could respond, his communications array lit up with an incoming transmission. This one carried the encryption codes of the Hegemony High Council itself. The image of High Counselor Vroth appeared on screen, his ancient features twisted with anger. "Commander Zirith, explain yourself." "Our long-range sensors detected the destruction of the Kepler 442 system." "What is happening in that backwater sector?" Zirith took a deep breath. "High Counselor, the human species has demonstrated capabilities far beyond our initial assessment. They possess weapons that can trigger stellar collapse and have threatened to use them against our home worlds." Vroth's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Our intelligence reports describe them as barely capable of interplanetary travel." "Our intelligence reports were wrong," Zirith replied flatly. "They have been deliberately concealing their technology. They also claim to have placed quantum devices in the stars of 77 hegemony systems." The High Counselor's expression changed from anger to concern. "Are you certain of this claim?" "They proved it by destroying Kepler 442, an entire star system, gone in seconds." Silence fell across the communication link. When Vroth spoke again, his voice was quiet. "What are their demands?" "Complete withdrawal from their space. Permanent cessation of contact. And ... Zirith hesitated. "And what?" "They want us to free every enslaved world in our territory." Vroth's roar of rage echoed through Zirith's damaged ship. "Unacceptable. The hegemony does not negotiate with primitives." "High Counselor," Zirith said carefully, "they are not primitives, and they are not negotiating. They are delivering an ultimatum." Another voice broke into the transmission. High Counselor Krex, the most ancient member of the ruling council, spoke with the weight of centuries behind his words. "Zirith, in 3,000 years of expansion, how many species have chosen to fight us rather than surrender?" "Perhaps 50, High Counselor." "And how many of those possessed weapons capable of threatening our home worlds?" Zirith's silence was answer enough. "Send us everything," Krex commanded. "Every piece of data about their technology, their capabilities, their communications. The Council will deliberate." The transmission ended, leaving Zirith alone with his thoughts. Around him, damage control teams continued their work, but he knew they were running out of time. 30-8 minutes until the deadline. On Earth's surface, in the Pacific bunker, Admiral Chun Wei watched as reports came in from around the globe. Every military installation was ready. Every civilian had been evacuated to shelters or evacuation ships. Every adult who remained had volunteered for what they all knew was likely humanity's final hour. "Admiral," Atlas announced, "we're detecting increased communication traffic between hegemony vessels and their home territory. They appear to be requesting instructions. Any sign they're preparing to retreat? Chun Wei asked. Negative. Their weapons remain active and they're maintaining position around Earth's orbit. Dr. Elena Vasquez's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, the stellar collapse devices are fully armed. If they refuse our ultimatum, we can trigger simultaneous collapse in 77 hegemony systems. Chun Wei nodded grimly. And our own star? Also armed, Elena replied quietly. If they attack Earth, we can trigger our sun's collapse. The resulting supernova will sterilize this entire system, taking any remaining hegemony ships with us. President Martinez entered the command center, his face showing the weight of humanity's desperate gamble. Admiral, any word from our children? The last evacuation ships reached their destination 6 hours ago, Chun Wei confirmed. Our children are safe in systems so remote that it would take the hegemony centuries to find them, if they ever do. The president nodded. Then we've succeeded in our primary mission. The human species will survive, no matter what happens here. 22 minutes until the deadline dot in hegemony space. The High Council convened an emergency session in their ancient chamber on Hegemony Prime. Representatives from dozens of species that had long ago submitted to hegemony rule gathered to hear reports. About the human threat, High Counselor Krex studied the data that Zirith had transmitted. Weapons readings that defied physics. Strategic planning that spanned decades. A species that had successfully hidden advanced technology while appearing primitive. The implications are staggering, he announced to the assembled council. If the humans can do this, how many other species have we underestimated? How many worlds that we consider securely conquered might possess hidden capabilities? High Counselor Vrath slammed his fist on the council table. We cannot show weakness. If we retreat from one primitive world, every species in our territory will see it as a sign that the hegemony can be defeated. But if we don't retreat, Krex replied quietly, the humans will trigger stellar collapse across our territory. They could destroy our entire civilization in a matter of hours. The council erupted in arguments. Some demanded immediate retaliation against Earth. Others called for negotiation. A few suggested complete withdrawal from human space. As they debated, new intelligence arrived. Human ships had been detected throughout hegemony territory, not for days or weeks, but for decades. Ships that had avoided detection, planted devices, and gathered intelligence on an unprecedented scale. They've been planning this for longer than some of our counselors have been alive, Krex observed. This isn't a desperate defense. This is a carefully orchestrated trap that we walked into exactly as they intended. 15 minutes until the deadline dot back in Earth's orbit, Commander Zirith received new orders from the High Council. His communications officer delivered the message with shaking hands. Sir, the High Council has reached a decision. We are ordered to withdraw from human space immediately. All hegemony forces are to retreat beyond the boundary of their solar system and establish a quarantine zone. Zirith stared at the message in disbelief. A quarantine zone? Yes, sir. No hegemony vessel is ever to enter human space again. The humans are to be classified as a Class Omega threat. Class Omega, the highest threat rating in hegemony classification, reserved for phenomena that could destroy entire civilizations. There's more, sir, the communications officer continued. The High Council is issuing a galaxy-wide warning about the human species. Any civilization that encounters them is to avoid contact at all costs. Zirith began issuing retreat orders to his surviving ships. As his fleet prepared to withdraw, he received one final transmission from Earth. President Martinez appeared on screen, but this time he was not alone. Behind him stood Admiral Chun Wei, Dr. Elena Vasquez, and dozens of other humans who had orchestrated Humanity's Defense. Commander Zereth, the president said, your High Council has made a wise decision. But before you leave, humanity has a message for the hegemony and any other species that might be listening. The camera pulled back to show a vast chamber filled with humans. Thousands of them, representing every nation and culture on Earth. For too long, the galaxy has been terrorized by empires like yours, the president continued. Species that conquer and enslave, that treat other civilizations as resources to be harvested. This ends now. Admiral Chun Wei stepped forward. We have placed monitoring devices throughout the galaxy. If the hegemony ever again attacks an innocent world, if you ever restart your slave programs or genetic experiments,